It was a busy first week for the Patriots in free agency. How will it affect their draft plans? This is Patriots Draft Countdown, presented by Bud Light.
With the fourth pick, the New England Patriots select.
Welcome, everybody. This is Patriots Draft Countdown, presented by Bud Light. Easy to drink, easy to enjoy. Bud Light, the official beer sponsor of the New England Patriots. And we're excited here to be back in studio for another episode of Patriots Draft Countdown. Guys, we had free agency, a lot of moves made by the Patriots, specifically on the defensive side of the ball. And what we just want to discuss here is how's it going to affect their draft plans, Paul? They were heavy on the defensive side of the ball. What are your takeaways and how they might affect the draft?
Yeah, starting to hear a lot of people being, let's say, worried, might be an understatement, about neglecting the offense. I have to think that they're going to lean a little bit more heavily on that side of the ball come draft time. Now, the problem with that is that's great in theory, but how does it work out in practice? Who's available? You need a left tackle. You need more than just a left tackle up front. You need a wide receiver. Will those spots be worthy of taking someone at number 4 with those positions, I should say? That time will tell, but I have to think they're going to weigh heavily on offense, Mike.
Evan, you put out another mock draft this week. How did the free agency affect your thoughts that went into this mock draft?
Yeah, offense was the first 2 picks. I mean, I took Campbell and Jaden Higgins from Iowa State with my first 2 picks, but I think that's really what it came down to when I did that mock draft is order of operations. Like, which position do you want to address first? Obviously, it's going to depend on which player you have graded higher. You know, is it Tet McMillan and then a tackle? Is it Campbell and then a receiver? I think that's the direction that we're headed in, but it's just a matter of, finding the value of where to hit those spots. You mentioned that they need more than just tackle. I do think one of the benefits of this draft is a very good guard class, very deep. You could probably find 3rd or 4th round starters at guard in particular, especially with all the tackles that could be guards from college to the pros. So I feel pretty good about them finding another guard that can compete at left guard, maybe even somebody that can flex to center as well. It's going to be those 2 positions, though, and just what order do you go in and how do you find that best value there?
Yeah, what stuck out to you, Matisse, most from this last week of free agency?
I mean, the defense is all you want to say taken care of now, but we still have questions at receiver. The O-line has some questions. I think some Patriots fans were a little upset that there were some trades made around the league, and I think the Patriots maybe could have got involved in that. But, I mean, now it's April. See what happens. Get a receiver.
So coming up later in the show, Matisse and Chris Cassidy sat down, broke down some of the mock drafts, how teams, other, pundits around the league view what the Patriots are going to do. But, guys, it seems like we're always kind of coming back to the same names up there at 4th overall. For me, though, it seems like a no-brainer. If Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter is there, and I know we've been saying this for months now, but if those 2 guys are there, Paul, are those the slam dunk guys? Is that the best case scenario, one of those 2 guys?
They would be for me. I absolutely would jump all over Travis Hunter if he were to slip to 4. Mike, I'm a little bit more interested in what you might do if those 2 guys were to not be on the board at number 4.
Well, that's the hard decision, and I put out a mock draft last week that
we'll get into it.
I'm sure Matisse and Chris are going to tear it apart, but just making a case, or at least bringing up the discussion for a player like Ashton Genty. And look, I understand running back; it's a devalued position a little bit this year, and the Patriots have a lot of needs, though. It's just standing out in my eye that the Patriots were a terrible run team last year, and that might be a way to support Drake May. But I think there are a lot of different options. We've talked about Daniel Jeremiah, his view of this draft going from 10 to 30 even. Not a lot of change, so it really puts, I think, pressure on the scouting staff to get it right. We don't want to be looking back 5 years from now and saying, man, we had the stud staring at us in the face at 4th overall, and we were trying to fill a need, or we went away from our board and we tried to make something work. I think they just have to nail this pick and get a talented player.
Yeah, there's always a chance that happens in any draft, that somebody slips through the cracks or falls a little bit that ends up being a great generational player. But I think in a draft like this, fit is going to be a big part of it, whether that's positional needs or just the fit in your system and in your program. And I think for a guy like Mike Vrabel, that is going to hold some weight in this draft because there's not a big talent gap between the others, not Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter, but everybody else. Character and intangibles and fit and how he's going to help them, and run this program and establish this program might end up being a big factor in this decision, because you might look at the board and you might say picks 4 through 12, we kind of have everybody graded similarly. So what are going to be the deal breakers? The position that they play, and if the staff likes the guy or not, right? Like those are going to end up ultimately being the deal breakers. And that's why when I hear just pick the best player available, I don't know if that necessarily applies to a draft like this.
Yeah, and that's an interesting factor that Evan brings up, because there are a lot of people that see this as a very level draft in term, whatever number you want to go down to. Is it 4? Is it 5? 10 to 40? Is it more like 4 to 40? There's a lot of people that think there's not a lot to choose from these different guys. So the factors that Evan's talking about might make the difference as to where you lean. And Mike, I think you made a really good point about the draft in general, and it's true every year. You have to make sure you hit on the picks. So you can do what Evan said and say Campbell and Hawkins with your first 2 picks and say, well, we're addressing the offense. Well, that's if those 2 guys can play. So, and there's no guarantees of that, and that's what makes it a little bit more difficult. And I think the challenge this year is finding difference-making players regardless of position. That's why I kind of lean on the best player available, but I understand what Evan's talking about with fit and culture and all those other things, because there's not a lot to choose from between, say, Tet McMillan and Tyler Warren and Ashton Genty and Will Campbell. There's something for everybody. It depends on what your preference happens to be.
Yeah, like Tet McMillan, sorry, Deuce, but like Tet McMillan's such a great example of the fit thing, because he would be the first receiver since Mike Evans in 2014 to go top 15 that ran a 4.5 plus in the 40-yard dash. So when you draft Tet McMillan, you have to have a plan of how are we going to use Tet McMillan? How does he fit into our offense? And if Josh McDaniels says he's not really my type of receiver, then you don't reach on a player like that in a draft like this because of that. So like there's so many examples of that. Mason Graham, does he have too much overlap with Milton Williams? Like, is there going to be redundancy there that now all of a sudden his value just isn't as high to the Patriots? So you have to be careful in this draft, I think, of what's the plan for this player? What's the vision? Where is the playing time for him? Where is his role going to be in your offense or your defense? Because if you can't make the player work, then you're in a really tough spot.
Yeah, free agency isn't quite over yet, though, and there are still some players out there. Cam Robinson's a popular name. Amari Cooper, Stephon Diggs. The Patriots could still make some additions. Do you feel like they still have some holes to plug with some of those veterans who might cost you a little bit more money? You might not quite get the return you want.
I think there are definitely some holes, but we've whiffed on so many receivers. I think a guy like Stephon Diggs, you faced him for the past 3 years in Buffalo. You played him again last year with the Texans. Like, I think bringing somebody in like that brings a lot of value to the team, similar with Amari Cooper. And Mac Hollins kind of brings that in, but you gotta hit nail on the head there.
All right, well, that's going to do it here at this first segment, but we got a jam-packed show. Hope you'll stick around. Evan's got a film breakdown coming up, and then later in the show we'll also break down the quarterbacks, in addition to Chris and Matisse breaking down the recent mock draft. So, jam-packed show. Check out Evan's film review here.
What's up, everybody? It's Evan Lazar. Welcome into the Patriots Draft Countdown film room. We're going to talk about the tight ends here today, my top 5 tight ends in this draft. We're going to break all these guys down individually here in a second, but I want to start at the top with Penn State's tight end Tyler Warren, top 10 projected pick in this class. We get to his film here and show you why he's so highly coveted here in this draft cycle. And I look at Tyler Warren, a couple different things that stand out about him on film. The first one being we can play bully ball. We can just be a man amongst boys. This is Gronk-esque from him in the red zone. So we're going to just run the seam here out of the slot, and as we roll this play, we're going to get off some physical coverage, we're going to get up the seam, and we're just going to make ourselves available, and we're going to high point the ball over the defender and moss him, right? That's what we can do at 6'5", 260 pounds that other tight ends simply cannot do. Now, we know he can play bully ball, we know he can outmuscle guys, but I also think that he's got some burst and some wiggle at the top of the route, so he's just going to run a little option here, get himself open, and then turn up the field. Nice little inch concept there by Penn State. And then this next clip right now show off that versatility. Now, I don't think that the Wildcat is going to be a big part of what he's going to bring to the table if he's drafted by the Patriots. But the reason why I want to show you him operating in the Wildcat is because of how smooth and explosive he is as a ball carrier in the open field. Again, remember, this is a 6'5", 250-plus tight end that is moving like a running back, and watch him tightrope the sideline and nearly get into the end zone here. That's pretty rare at that size. The last one here, we have the receiving ability, we have the yards after the catch and the ball carrying skill. Let's get to the blocking right here on the end of the line of scrimmage. We're going to bump this guy over first, then we're going to get to the DB here on the outside, and look at the rushing lane that he creates right there for his running back. So you can block, he can catch passes, he can run with the football in his hands. That's why Tyler Warren is a projected top 10 pick in this year's class. A couple of other guys I want to highlight here before we wrap this up. Colson Loveland from Michigan. Big fan of his. He is more in that Travis Kelce, Brock Bowers archetype. If Tyler Warren is like baby Gronk, I would say Colson Loveland similar to those guys. Explosive receiver, bursty in his routes, really can make big plays happen in the passing game. He's not a nothing blocker. I'd say he's an above average blocker, but really what you're getting with Colson Loveland is a jumbo receiver that can make big plays. A couple other guys here on day 2. You want your seam runner, your crosser, artist right there with Elijah Arroyo from Miami. Harold Fannin had that big year last year, record-breaking season for Bowling Green. But the last name I want to highlight here is Mason Taylor. We know all about his father, Jason Taylor, from his days with the Miami Dolphins. He's a younger prospect, had a great Senior Bowl week, fantastic ball skills, really natural hands catcher there by Mason Taylor. So those are my top 5 tight ends. Tyler Warren obviously in play there at number 4 overall for the Patriots, but just in general, a really strong class.
What's up, everybody? Matisse Bauman here with Chris Cassidy. We got a new segment on the Patriots Draft Countdown podcast presented by Bud Light. We're going to break down some of the Patriots mock drafts from the experts around the league.
Yeah.
This is all available on the Patriots.com mock draft tracker. We want to talk about it live. So, Chris, our very own Mike Dussault, we'll get started with him.
Sure, rip it up with Mike.
He has
here.
the Patriots selecting Ashton Genty from Boise State.
I mean, all right. So this is my take on that. All right. Patriots will need a running back in this draft, in my opinion. I think there's a lot of running backs, a lot of depth there. I don't know if you take Ashton Genty at 4.
Yeah.
My only thought here is there's more important needs to be filled.
100%.
And you need the offensive tackle. You need a left tackle. You got Morgan Moses, who can play right tackle forever. Who has played right tackle forever, I should say.
I wish you could play forever.
Yeah. But you need the wide receiver and you need the left tackle. You know, Travis Hunter's really appealing there at 4. Ashton Genty, I don't know if he really gets it done for you there.
Yeah.
I think there's more valuable options. If you want to get Ashton Genty, maybe trade back, some sort of scenario like that. But I think that's where it stands.
I view Genty as a luxury pick.
Absolutely.
I think if the Patriots are in a situation similar to the Bengals in 2021, I believe, where Joe Burrow hurt his knee, but the team was pretty set. They hurt his knee. They get Jamar Chase.
Right.
Look where they are. Patriots aren't in that situation. We have the quarterback, but we have so many other needs that I don't think it's the right pick.
What I would compare it to as well, though, is like the Derrick Henry coming into the draft. Like, he has that much promise, and he's that good at his position, but he needs to go to a team that specifically needs to fill their running back hole.
And that being said, Chris, we'll get to this in the next couple episodes. This is a pretty deep running back class.
Oh,
so
absolutely.
if you pass on Genty, you're good. But Deuce, I love the ambition.
Daring.
There.
Really daring.
I like it. Got the people talking. So, Chris, we move on to Daniel Jeremiah, Mel Kiper, ESPN. We'll also throw Evan Lazar in there with his mock draft 1.0. Travis Hunter, cornerback, wide receiver.
I mean, I think that's the most appealing pick in this draft. I mean, your 1-2 punch in the draft, in this 2025 draft, Abdul Carter, Travis Hunter. I think those are your top 2 guys in the draft. Really can step up, immediate starters, depending on where they're putting them on the ball. Travis Hunter, as we're talking about right now, I mean, he could be your wide receiver 1 if he wanted to better himself. I think he needs to get his hands in a better spot. I think he's a little bit better defensively. That's just my opinion. But the Patriots need, both sides. You know what I mean? So however you want to use them, I think Travis Hunter's your guy. You can kind of utilize it and work around it any way you want.
Yeah, he's option 1B for me. 1A we'll get to later. But 1B, just him being a receiver, that instinct really helps him be a cornerback as well. But the Patriots added Carlton Davis. So you got Gonzo Davis. You could put Travis Hunter there. So, hey, if you get him, you're scary already.
Right.
So.
If you want to use Travis Hunter as a wide receiver primarily, you can still use him in your nickel package.
Yep.
He has so much experience playing both sides of the ball. You could throw him out there for 25% of the defensive snaps in a game, and he'll be productive for you.
And Chris, those are 3 big names there: Dan Jeremiah, Mel Kiper Jr., and our own Evan Lazar. But we'll get on to the pick number 3 from mock draft number 3. We got Josh Edwards, Chris Trapasso from CBS Sports, and Evan Lazar's most recent mock draft 2.0, which just went up on Patriots.com. They have him taking Will Campbell, offensive tackle, LSU.
Now, Will Campbell, another guy. I mean, I don't want does arm length matter? Absolutely. I don't think it matters in the case for Will Campbell. I think he's one of the best offensive line blockers in college football. I think he's strong. He's got great speed. Whatever you need him to do, he'll do it. So, that being said, as a tackle, you could put him there, and I'm sure he'll be productive. Could he maybe be more productive on an interior line position? Possibly.
Which we need now.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely. So, you kind of have to gauge that situation. I do think Will Campbell would be productive at a tackle spot. Me personally, I don't know if I would go the Campbell route. I don't know. I feel like, again, I'm so set on that Travis Hunter and.
Well, definitely, Chris. That being said, it's not the sexy pick.
No,
that's the least sexy out of all of it. But he's a grinder, and people forget beginning of the year for 24. I mean, he was consensus pick number 1 before Hunter hit the scene and Abdul Carter.
True.
So I mean, I don't really believe the arm length thing. I kind of put it like DK Metcalf with the 3-cone drill. If you can play, you can play. But I'd be okay with it. But out of the people we've mentioned, so far my least favorite. I think.
Again, I like him a lot. Yep. But I think there's more true left tackles in this draft.
Yep. All right, so Chris, we move on to, for me, pick 1A. We got Field Yates, Charles Davis, Abdul Carter, Penn State, number 4 overall.
Absolute menace on the field.
I mean,
just his body, like he is your pure edge rusher. Like he's the guy you want to line up week 1, and he's going to have immediate production on the field. And I just think on everyone's draft boards, regardless of needs, he is everybody's 1-1.
Yeah,
it just comes down to what teams specifically need at that point.
I memean, Chris, if the Titans take Cam Ward, Browns take Shedeur, you're getting one of those other 3 guys we've said. Yeah. That being said, Abdul Carter, he kind of reminds me of the 2017 draft. The Browns took Myles Garrett.
Right.
They needed a quarterback.
Yeah.
Listen, that draft had Mahomes, Watson, Christian McCaffrey, and they picked Myles Garrett, and I think the Patriots are in their best spot because we have the quarterback. So if we can take Abdul Carter at 4, it's from the football gods.
Yeah.
You run with it, and you're good.
I agree. I think he's your 1A. Like you said earlier, I think 1A, Abdul Carter, 1B, Travis Hunter, and people are going to be back and forth on the Travis Hunter pick because they're like, oh, well, we have Gonzo, and yes, we signed Carlton Davis. Of course, those are important, and people, again, are skeptical at some points of Travis Hunter's wide receiver game, but I just, athletically and what you'd be able to do with these guys on the field, I think those have to be your 1A, 1B.
100%. So, Chris, this is just a week after free agency. A lot more to come, more mock drafts to come. Our next segment, we're going to be doing our own 3-round mock, so we'll let you know what we do. We break that down. But, guys, thanks for tuning in. Let's get back to the rest of the Patriots Draft Countdown podcast presented by Bud Light.
Okay, the first position we're breaking down here is a position, guys, I'm glad that we got last year because it's pretty barren out there as far as the quarterbacks this year. 2 guys atop the list, though, Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, 2 guys that I think we're all hoping that maybe go in the top 3, really, and push down Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter, maybe to the Patriots. That's probably the most interesting thing about these quarterbacks this year. But, Paul, I'll start with you. Just what are your impressions with those top 2 guys?
I think you nailed the setting there. That's exactly what the Patriots are hoping for, both of those guys to go in the top 3. I don't think it's going to happen because, to me, it's really not the top 2 guys. It's the top 1 guy, Cam Ward, and then the next guy, Shedeur Sanders. And I do think there's a gap between Sanders and the rest. But I think there's also a gap between Ward and Sanders. So I'm sort of intrigued. I liked Cam Ward at Washington State a lot. I didn't see him as much last year in Miami. I know he was a little sort of up and down. They had an explosive offense. But there's a lot of skills there, I think, to work with. And I think that and you guys would know better, coming back from the Combine a few weeks ago. It seems like the NFL guys are a little bit more sold on him than they are the rest.
Yeah, I think you broke it down perfectly in those tiers. The question is just where does Shedeur fit into all of this, and what's his ceiling, what's his floor in terms of where he goes in the draft. Cam Ward feels like a top quarterback prospect, the way that he's being discussed by people that we spoke to at the Combine Deuce and things like that. So he's got a free arm, loose arm, really can whip the ball anywhere from different arm angles, has that whole gunslinger, playmaker thing that everybody likes nowadays, can run a little bit. I would say that his skill set reminds me the most of like a Russell Wilson type, prime Russell Wilson. With the way that he can throw the ball deep and move around and things like that, but he's being talked about it a little bit differently than the rest of this class. And if you're a quarterback needy team, it's just a matter of do you draft Shedeur Sanders in the first round, or do you draft a similar high floor guy like Will Howard or something like that on day 2. And I feel like that's where the Patriots are circling, crossing their fingers that somebody jumps early.
Yeah, Tease, we saw Shedeur Sanders at the Combine. Does not lack for confidence at all. I said I think he's got all his dad's confidence, maybe not quite all his dad's skill, but what do you think of Shedeur? If this was your team, would you make the move for him?
I am a Shedeur guy, but that being said, it's not a strong class. You always see quarterbacks be hyped up every year. It has shades of 2022 with Pickett and Brock Purdy, which is funny because Pickett just won a Super Bowl, and Purdy's Mr. Irrelevant. But that being said, I like Shedeur. He's more of a prototypical quarterback compared to Cam Ward. I think the question is, if you're one of those teams, is this a guy, like you're drafting him 1 or 2, is that like you're going to have to bank on him for a couple of years? You want to go through the growing pains again, or maybe get a better player like Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter, which would be bad for the Patriots, obviously, and then deal with the growing pains. So
I was hoping you were going to talk me into to go in Shedeur at like 3rd overall.
Hey, as a Pats fan, take him.
I feel like we come across like Shedeur can't play at all.
Oh no, I think he's a good player.
Yeah, I just think that there's questions about how good of a player is he going to be. What's his ceiling? I think he's really polished actually for this point. Pocket poise, mechanics. He throws a good ball, but there isn't that wow factor when you watch his tape.
Well, that being said, too, he was playing behind a very bad offensive line. That being said, some of the teams would draft him don't have the best line, but it'd be interesting to see if he falls in the right place, what his potential could be.
Yeah. Moving down the list a little bit, Jackson Dart. I think did you see him down to the Senior Bowl?
Yeah.
So you got
best
a full
Senior Bowl week ever, apparently.
Yeah. Well, it was for a while there. We were talking about he's going to elevate. It seems like that's maybe settled in a little bit. He's that. Maybe I don't want to say B level because I'm not sure that Shedeur isn't a B level guy, but he's that maybe seems like that 3rd guy to go.
He's the wild card. You could fall in love with the traits with Jackson Dart, and I would totally understand it. If it was 7-on-7, Jackson Dart would be a top 5 pick, right? Like guy can really sling it. He throws a great ball. He's got a great arm. He can throw on the run. He can throw from the pocket. He really has no limitations from a physical standpoint. But he played in one of those college air raid systems. There's a lot of RPO. There's a lot of one read things that were going on for him there at Ole Miss. So like he's going to have to prove that he can do a little bit more than I think some of the things he showed in college at the next level. But he's got a lot of traits that you can fall in love with. And when you see him in a practice setting like down in Mobile where he's wearing a non-contact jersey and he's just kind of standing there throwing balls in practice, I can tell why people would watch that and say this guy's got something going here. But you watch his college tape and it's just a roller coaster. It's just a lot of ups and downs.
Yeah, I mean, from a pure skills standpoint, I think you can make an argument he's more skilled than Sanders. But everything Evan said is right in that whole Ole Miss system. And there's a reason why those quarterbacks, and there's some good guys with good skills. Like Matt Corral was a guy, obviously the Patriots fans are, mildly familiar with. There's a reason why different teams are giving those guys opportunities because they're enamored with the skill sets. But I think that the system down there, while it's a very effective college system, hasn't necessarily translated. I think if you look back to like Texas Tech, the old Mike Leach air raid, kind of a thing, a lot of those guys just didn't work when they got to the NFL, and then all of a sudden Patrick Mahomes came. So maybe Jackson Dart's the guy that sort of breaks the mold. I'd be a little bit more skeptical the way Evan sounded. I think he can play. I think physically he's a guy I wouldn't mind taking a chance on in day 2 as a developmental guy. You mentioned Will Howard also.
Yeah.
I would be in on those guys as a developmental guy. But if you think you're gonna I'm gonna beat the system. I'm gonna take Jackson Dart at 22, and I'm going to have my guy. I don't think it's going to work out for you.
Yeah, well, you don't need to beleaguer this position too much, but you guys mentioned Will Howard, Riley Leonard, 2 guys that faced each other in the national championship game, and Quinn Ewers, another name I would just throw in there. Guys that are kind of have some name brand recognition, but as we get to the draft, you mentioned Will Howard as maybe a guy with a floor and maybe worth working with, but what do you guys think of those 3 T's?
It's just interesting. You see Quinn Ewers, Will Howard, all those guys. I wonder where they're going to end up falling because the drop is pretty significant. You also have guys like Jalen Milroe. Like, they all have some positive traits. So I think they're going to end up in the 4th round. Like, you could take a shot on them, but if that case, you're probably set at quarterback. They're going to develop for a couple of years.
Yeah,
regardless.
day 3 guys. I would agree with Tease. And I would, Tyler Shuck is a guy that, I don't know if there's ever been a more experienced quarterback coming out of college. I mean, 7 seasons, 3 at Oregon, 3 at Texas Tech, and last year at Louisville. Maybe he's too old. You're too old.
I really liked him at the Combine, the podium. I just found him. I thought he presented himself well.
obviously, everybody looks at Jaden Daniels now. He played 6 years, and now you need that experience, and that's how you do it. So maybe he'll get a look as a day 3 guy, maybe not. I don't know. But he's a guy that sort of had some periods of productivity in college.
Yeah, you mentioned, the Howards, the Leonards. I think those guys are backups to maybe low-end starter talents just in terms of their ceiling. But Tyler Shaw is one of those guys that has 6'5", 225 pounds, and you watch his tape. He's like kind of the draft Nick's favorite quarterback in this class because he just makes some throws that are just, from ridiculous arm angles and stuff like that. There's one of him in the red zone where I don't really know if a human arm is supposed to go at that angle, and he just like kind of flicks it almost like underhand to a receiver. And so he does a lot of that kind of stuff on tape that gets clipped and put on Twitter and things like that and makes the rounds. The other guy I think that has some upside that teams could take a chance on is Jalen Milroe. I just look at him. His ability to run obviously is a big part of it, but if you build an offense around him like Philly did with Jalen Hurts and it specializes in the things that he can do, then I do think that you could make a productive offense around Jalen Milroe. A little raw still as a passer, but can really whip it, can run. I would look at him as someone that if you want to bet on traits, those two guys are the traits guys, and then Howard and Riley Leonard and those guys are sort of the floor, backup types.
I mean, I agree with Evan also with Milroe. You look at the beginning of the college season, I mean, they were saying he was going to go top 5. So, I mean, the talent is there, and it'll be very interesting. Maybe he gets that backup role. Somebody gets hurt, give him a chance, see what happens.
Yeah, anybody else that I didn't mention that you guys are particularly interested in? Not a big position to need for the Patriots.
Patriots got lucky, that's all I'm going to say.
True enough. Drake May last year. So that's going to do it for the quarterback positional preview, as well as this episode of Patriots Draft Countdown. We'll be back next week with another jam-packed episode.